This is America by Childish Gambino represents a stunning victory over the American right wing. Now the left is on the ascendancy of popular culture. Donald Glover is a genius, and the right only has Kanye West, who writes lyrics like poopity scoop whoop. The stunning, incredible video shows that America is a white supremacist country that cares more about guns than it does about black lives. And all the right can do, at the incredible lyrics and wonderful choreography of Donald Glover, is cry about how they're being called racist.
Donald Glover, Childish Gambino dance he's doing that he probably thinks you think is real original, that's a voodoo dance he's doing. In fact, that's a whole other subject. Pull me, voodoo dancing, people in trance, and that is a voodoo dance, 110%. I mean, you've got all of that then personified through artwork, but they don't think you know what you're actually looking at. You know, the Clintons like to go and do their own voodoo rituals. That's in the news.
Well, excuse me, I thought it was the left who needed safe spaces. Indeed, there's nothing better than watch these conservatives cry as their grip on popular culture completely crumbles. They even tried to say that they were the new punk rock, that it was cool to be white, that it was cool to be European. But with This Is America, that is all over. Conservatism is no longer the new counterculture. Leftism is the new counterculture. Neo-Marxism isn't even left-wing enough for us. It's to the right. We are post-neo-Marxists. Postmodernism is just liberal crap. We are neo-postmodernists. We will now have a world with no borders. And you can try to complain about it, right wing, but good luck stopping the left. You won't have any guns. Leftism is ascendant. And if you don't like it, conservatives, cry me a river.
Why am I analysing This Is America by Childish Gambino?
Because it's a black guy that has an opinion that you don't like, and that's unacceptable. Better shut that down. So This Is America is a music video by Donald Glover that went viral. Donald Glover is an actor who was in Community, who played Abed's best friend.
Let's change into something appropriate for the occasion and be on our way.
I agree. Troy and Abed being normal.
His music project is called Childish Gambino.
Why am I analysing This Is America by Childish Gambino? Because millions upon millions of people have blithely swallowed the social justice narrative that it promotes.
Now, I think there are certain elements of the video that promote social justice. If you haven't watched the video, I think it's fantastic. Tons of awesome dancing and choreography, but also a very deep and interesting video with many themes about violence in America, about black culture, about popular culture, music, history, like everything. It's all crammed in there. It's a very interesting video, and I quite enjoyed the song too. Like, at first it didn't really make much of an impact on me, but increasingly I started getting parts of the song stuck in my head, particularly, "Get your money, black man, get your money." That gets stuck in my head so much. I think the social justice narrative, which is the strongest throughout the whole video, is the anti-gun narrative, or pro-gun control at the very least, or the idea that Americans treat guns as more valuable than their own children after they've been shot by them.
This is America. Don't catch you slipping now. Black man. This is America.
Many Americans are worried about the guns and seem to prioritize those over human life, and I think that is maybe a social justice narrative that's running through the video. But I did not pick up or get the themes from this video that Paul Joseph Watson goes to, which, of course, is entirely 100% and totally through a racialized, racist, racial lens about black people versus white people. I think the social justice present is about gun culture, probably. That's the main thing that stood out. But let's see where Paul takes this.
First off, I'm not questioning the talents of either Donald Glover or the choreography for this video, which are both obviously substantial.
Very charitable.
I am questioning the phony, race-baiting, divisive narrative that the video seeks to elevate.
The phony, race-baiting, divisive narrative that the video seeks to elevate? Which is what?
So Donald Glover, Childish Gambino, is essentially playing the role of America White America, to be more precise.
So Donald Glover himself said that he doesn't want to explain what the lyrics in video mean, because he wants people to come to their own interpretations. And we can see that playing out very much here with Paul Joseph Watson, because how do you know that he is playing the role of America? How do you know specifically who Donald Glover is playing the role of in this video? Paul Joseph Watson is talking out of his ass to say that that is just the stone cold thing that Donald Glover is doing. In the video, you see him dancing various styles, some of which are like African or African-American dances from popular culture. He also shoots a black guy in the head, and he shoots a bunch of church singers with a gun. He's dancing throughout much of the video with school children, and towards the end of the video, he lights some marijuana and then tries to run away. How from all of that did you get that he is playing the role of America? What does Paul base that on?
Glover massacring the gospel singers is a reference to the racist murder of black churchgoers in Charleston.
Now, I actually think that's the only thing in this entire video that I could see that makes any reference whatsoever to white people or whiteness at all, and it's a roundabout reference because it never directly says that this is referencing Dylan Roof shooting people in the church. You have to make that assumption because, you know, that is a very well-known shooting by a white guy of black people. But even if everything PJW said was true, and that was Donald Glover's intention, it's still a very different mental image to see a black man shooting a bunch of black gospel singers. Just the optics of it, just how it looks, is very much different than seeing a white person do it. The real-life shooter was white, Donald Glover is black. I think it's quite jarring and it creates a lot of ambiguity. Paul Joseph Watson doesn't see any ambiguity, he just says, a reference of any kind to a crime committed with guns by a white person means, obviously Donald Glover is saying, white people are evil. The entire video is just saying, white people only shoot black people, that's the only thing that ever happens in the world. And Paul Joseph Watson's on the case to sort that out. Oh, these evil black people, referencing a single bad thing with guns that a white person did. Race baiters. But it's funny that that's the only thing in the video that Paul Joseph Watson can point to, and it's quite open to interpretation. Also, just a side note, I don't know if this is true, but when he says, look what I'm whipping up.
Look what I'm whipping up. Look how I'm kicking up. I'm so fitted. I'm on Gucci. I'm so pretty. Yeah. I'm gonna get it.
That made me think of the watch me whip it, watch me nay-nay, or whatever, that really fucking irritating dance that everybody does. And he does a kind of combination whip and nay-nay where he's holding his crotch and he's whipping and nay-naying at the same time. And that seems to tie into the reference to popular songs and music and referencing making 100 bands, which it means $100, and saying, I'm so pretty. Just like in mainstream culture, that's a thing that's very important, is just looking pretty, looking good, having material success.
The guy shot at the beginning of the video also looks like Trayvon Martin's dad, cementing the Black Lives Matter theme that racist white America is hunting down African Americans.
Here Paul goes to hyper-analytical, ridiculous levels to try to spin a kind of white grievance narrative by attempting to tie this video to BLM in the most tortured possible way that he could, because he's going to stick up his ass about the topic of, you know, black people being shot unfairly by cops, and thinks that that's just like such an anti-white racist thing to mention, that he says this guy purposefully is looking like Trayvon Martin's dad. Well, the actor who played him has heard of that, and he didn't know anything about that.
One of my good friends actually sent me a message online and was like, hey, they're saying like it's Trayvon's dad. And I was like, okay, well, I can see that we don't not look alike. It happens. But the thing that kind of was weird about it was that like different, you know, online publications were picking up the story and running with it. I completely understand if like somebody was like, wow, they gotta look similar. But I was a little bit disappointed that news outlets or journalistic outlets were kind of just reposting the story as if it was a confirmed fact. Not so much for myself, like it doesn't necessarily offend me, but just I would hate for him to, you know, see the article, watch the video. It seemed a little bit careless. Like he's clearly gone through a lot of trauma. And so my heart went out for him. Like, wow, like this is the last thing I'm sure he wants to see is a video of more gun violence. He lost his actual son, not like not an internet son, his real son, at the hands of gun violence. So I don't even necessarily want him to see the video. I feel like he's gone through enough.
But Paul has to go to these fucking levels to play the victim. over being a white person. Or perhaps just playing victim on behalf of police officers and other people who can do no wrong ever solely by the fact that they have a particular occupation, and that it puts them at odds with minorities who are obviously always in the wrong. I think Paul Joseph Watson thinks that his audience is stupid and they will just buy any old garbage or trash that he shovels into their brains. Trayvon Martin's dad's in there, even though it's probably a total coincidence, and I don't know anything about whether that was on purpose, and it wasn't, probably. And the fans respond like, yes, those black people, criminals and liars. This is the race baiting. This video by Paul Joseph Watson. It's projection. It's classic projection. He is putting onto the video the intentions that he himself has. This is what I would do. So that is what the video is doing.
Strangely absent from the 4-minute video is any reference whatsoever to the #1 killer of black people in America, which is other black people. A fact you'd think would be part of the conversation if Glover really cared about black lives. Also absent is the fact that black people kill more white people than vice versa, despite the fact that white people make up a far larger percentage of the population.
The video is saying Black Lives Matter is great, and that black people kill white people. And you know what? I hate race baiting. Anyways, this video would be really good if it was just all about how evil black people are, because black people are criminals. So if it was just 4 minutes about how black people commit crimes, that'd be great. And that's in no way contradictory with my complaints about race baiting. So he really tipped his hand here, showed all his cards. He is projecting onto this video what he wants it to be. If he made the video, the whole thing just would have been saying, black people are criminals, black people kill white people, look at Chicago, look at the gun violence, black people are bad. That would have been the whole fucking theme of the video. So he looks at this nuanced video which has various messages in it which are all open to interpretation. One of them could be white violence against black violence, but it's not explicit. That's something you'd have to read into that. He looks at that and he assumes, out of hand, that it is operating in the way that his mind operates. So when he sees it, he just sees like, white people are bad. White people kill black people. Everything wrong with any black community is the fault of white people. The references to slavery in the video are explicitly saying the only reason anything ever bad has ever happened to any black person is because of white people, and due to this, white people are evil. And it's racist against white people, and that really hurts my feelings. Really hurts me. Makes me feel very fragile and hurt. And I think I need to go to, not a safe space, but a place where people don't say mean things about white history. Maybe I'll call it a good place. I've got to go to my good place. No one ever brings up slavery in my good place.
And here comes the race baiting.
According to the National Crime Victimization Survey, in 2010, 62,593 blacks were the victims of white violence. During that same year, 320,082 whites were the victims of black violence. That's 5 times as many violent attacks.
Oh yes, race bait for me, Paul, race bait!
But that number's misleading, since the black and white populations are not the same size. When 38 million black Americans commit 5 times as many violent crimes on 197 million whites as they receive,
oh, that's some good race baiting. Oh, yes.
What you discover is that black perpetrators violently assault white victims 25 times more frequently.
Blacks, so bad. Oh, tell me, tell me.
And when it comes to a specific kind of violent crime, aggravated assault, the number of black on white crimes is 200 times higher than white on black crime.
200 times higher, oh my god! Oh, you know what I like, Paul. Oh.
Running through the lyrics and the entire video is the theme of Glover and the dancers serving as a distraction from the chaos going on behind them.
Running through the lyrics? I mean, where are the lyrics about him serving as a distraction? I think that was more prevalent in the video. Did Paul read the lyrics? That's kind of the question. Doubtful. I don't think if it only read the lyrics you'd be able to get that theme. I think that's more to do with the video.
Which is supposed to be an allegory of how entertainment distracts from social justice, racism, and identity politics.
I really think this is Paul just making up a lot more stuff. It's an allegory that people don't focus enough on racism, social justice, and identity politics. I mean, how slanted and biased are the lenses through which he's seeing this video? I didn't pick up anything like that. I'm pretty sure what the video is actually saying is that their dancing and moving and jiving and so forth is a distraction from important issues, things that matter. I couldn't see anything in the video that was saying, you know, oh, there's something problematic behind the dancers, like there's somebody being racist or something. One of the people behind the dancers just problematically used that N-word and, you know, so now we have to tell them off or something, and you don't focus on that because of the dancers. I don't know what the identity politics part would even look like. Like, what do you mean? There was someone in the background doing identity politics. Like, maybe if there was a racialized billboard for a politician that you didn't notice. Social justice? Well, I guess, like, shootings of black people, whether by white people, black people, police, by anybody, those are a social justice issue of some kind. But I guess Paul would just be saying no one can ever care about black people being shot, you know, because black people are such evil, bad criminals who killed white people at 200 times the rate, so let's have a race war and stuff. And if you care about black people being killed, you're a social justice person who is saying white people are racist or something. I don't know. He's got a fucking twisted mind, I'll tell you that.
Talks about how entertainment media is serving as a distraction from bigger issues at hand.
What are you talking about? The entertainment industry is now wall-to-wall social justice, racism, and identity politics.
I took the video to be much more as talking about materialism, even talking about capitalism, saying that, you know, the shiny objects and things distract us from what we should really be focusing on and talking about.
100 bands, 100 bands, 100 bands. Contraband, contraband, contraband. I got the plug on who a hawker. Whoa, they gonna find you like Baka. Blah.
You don't see any police shoot any black people in the video. You do see a police car in the background. There is a car on fire and so forth. So there are references to the police, but it's never as explicit as talking about police shootings. It never goes to that step. And I think perhaps Paul even mentions identity politics because it's a video full of black people talking about black people's real life problems and issues that they face in the world. And to Paul, that's identity politics, because they should shut up. They should never really express anything that they're having issues or trouble with in America. America is perfect. America is perfect. It's given them all the opportunities in the world. They should sit down and shut the fuck up. And I think that is Paul Joseph Watson's view.
You can't get through a late-night comedy monologue, an NFL national anthem, or an awards show speech without being bombarded with social justice, racism, and identity politics. This very video has handed the entertainment industry and the media yet another opportunity to endlessly talk about social justice, racism, and identity politics.
Well, it's given you quite the opportunity to talk about it, Paul, because this is the third time you've used the phrase racism, social justice, and identity politics. It's almost like you are trying to create more racial division.
Mainstream America doesn't distract from discussions about racism and social justice. It amplifies them at every available opportunity.
Now, I think Paul almost has a point where he talks about, like, Hollywood does talk about a lot of social justice issues, and, like, at the Oscars, they're making preachy speeches, and there's, like, Colbert and, you know, other liberals in the mainstream culture, Eminem, you know, doing anti-Trump rants or whatever. But I honestly don't think that that is the part of the media that the critique is aimed at. Ironically enough, I think it is aimed at songs like the one that Paul played at the start of his video.
And this is crazy, but here's my number, so call me maybe.
I think it's more aimed at that kind of stuff, like the Taylor Swifts, the Justin Timberlakes, the Ed Sheerans. Artists that just focus on these like hokey and saccharine themes, don't really challenge anything that's going on, they don't really mention anything that's happening in the world which actually impacts people. They're not trying to focus on the big issues, all they're focusing on is fashion and style and dancing. And materialism, wealth, status. That the music is very shallow. Bubblegum. All of the edges are taken off, and it's all safe, and it's all focused on just making money as well. I think that was the thing that the video was really going at. These particular liberals and actors and directors may be very liberal, but that doesn't necessarily mean that their art is really challenging the structures of power. Because at the end of the day, it's still all about, get that money, black man. Get that money. And I would think that that would be a message that Paul Joseph Watson would like, you know, and he's got a lot of problems with popular culture. He's got a lot of problems with black people who are rappers and stuff going on about materialism and bling and hoes, etc. Well, Donald Glover is criticizing that. He's saying, like, we focus on just very shallow, superficial things. But Paul cannot compute that because he's so focused on racism, social justice, identity politics. 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 Social justice, racism, social.
One of the dance moves Glover performs is the South African Gwara Gwara, to draw a parallel between the racist oppression of black people in South Africa and racism in America, which is pretty ironic given that racist oppression currently taking place in South Africa is overwhelmingly directed towards white people.
Maybe he did that because it's a culturally African dance. And he was throwing in a lot of references to different dance styles. And he's making a reference to, like, you know, the origins of black people living in Africa. It could be for any range of reasons. But you instantly leap to the idea that it is the most social justice-y possible interpretation of the dance.
The South African Parliament has voted in favour of new legislation that could see land from white farmers seized.
He has said that he's not calling for the slaughter of white people, at least not yet. In recent years, there has been a spike in the killing of farmers in South Africa.
Oh yes, keep race baiting. I'm almost there.
The guns being attentively taken care of with a red cloth represents how Republicans care more about guns than lives.
Now, I think this is one that you're actually right on. I think that there is a very strong theme of criticism about guns and gun culture in America. It's not necessarily saying that it's white gun culture. This is America implies it's American gun culture. It's American. African Americans are Americans, unlike you, Paul. You're British, but I think that is the clearest social justice-y theme. Now, Republicans are not mentioned anywhere. That is more victim-mongering from Paul, trying to make it about, like, the specific group that he thinks is always being attacked, and it's so hard for Republicans. No, the video's called This Is America. It could easily just be about American culture. All of it. In America, they value the guns more than they value the dead people. And I think generally that's true. In terms of individuals and certain groups of people, perhaps they care, but overall the overarching culture of America is, it's more pro-gun than pro-life in that sense.
Another irony, given that defensive gun uses by victims are more common than gun uses by violent criminals, according to the CDC's own figures.
The statistic he shows is completely irrelevant. It's got nothing to do with whether he was saying that the Republicans care more about guns than people's lives. Okay, so a bunch of people used guns to protect themselves against other people who had guns, because there's guns everywhere. What's it got to do with the Republicans? And about whether they care about people's lives? Because the people that are attacking these people are also armed and also have weaponry, and it seems that Republicans are basically saying the only way to be safe is to be as armed as the other people who we also advocate to have arms because we do not believe in any kind of gun control. It's a very Mad Max way of thinking that the world is for the better because of guns. You know, oh, in the future you'll have a giant car covered in spikes, so you'll be able to fight off the people who are in giant cars covered in spikes, and then you just club each other to death, and that'll be great because everybody is armed.
Firearms violence has also been plummeting for the last 20 years, even as gun ownership soared.
That's good. That's a positive thing. But that doesn't mean America is still not a massive outlier in terms of gun violence, gun suicide, gun homicide, anything you can think of to do with guns. It's a huge outlier. It's good to hear it's improving, but they have a very long way to go, so it's not that impressive. I hope that continues, even though it still sucks.
Gambino says,
This is Sally. That's a tool. Yeah.
Selly could mean cell block, a commonly used tool to unjustly keep blacks in a cycle of incarceration.
Yeah. 50% homicide rate, 13% population rate.
I don't think Paul was being skeptical of the very things that he was supposedly debunking, because I don't agree with the original analysis that when he said, that's a Sally, that's a tool, he was talking about cell block, or that, even that it could mean cell block. I don't think it even could mean cell block. I think he was talking about a cell phone. I think he was saying the cell phone is a tool. And that would be because people use a cell phone to record dangerous situations that they can expose later. So it's a tool in that it can raise awareness about things that are happening. I don't think it's about cell block. But Paul took that at face value, and he used it as another opportunity to race bait, of course.
Glover also poses and pulls facial expressions like a caricature of Jim Crow. Jim Crow laws were racial segregation laws enacted by Democrats.
So what? What do the Democrats have to do with this video? What do the Republicans have to do with the video? You have to add all of your own political biases onto this video to make it about Democrats versus Republicans. There's nothing about Democrats or Republicans in the fucking video. It's not in there. I don't know if Donald Glover cares if Jim Crow era was Democrats or Republicans. There's no indication that he would.
But as Candace Owens points out, virtually no one complaining about Jim Crow laws today even lived through the Jim Crow era.
Victim mentality is not cool. I don't know why people like being oppressed. It's the weirdest thing I've ever heard. I love oppression. We're oppressed. 400 years of slavery, Jim Crow, which, by the way, none of you guys lived through. Your grandparents did, and it's embarrassing that you utilize their history. You're not living through anything right now. You're overly privileged Americans.
Who in their right mind has ever said, I love oppression? I love oppression, it's so great, I love being oppressed. Who the fuck has ever said that? All they have is straw men. It would be the exact opposite, I think. They would say, I hate being oppressed, I don't like being oppressed. You could take an issue with whether they are oppressed, okay? You can fight that. But Candace still has to do a straw man. Who says, I love oppression? That just doesn't even make sense. Kudos for that end there, talking about privilege. So she does recognize privilege. So she thinks that she is privileged.
Overly privileged Americans.
I just think it's funny she recognizes the idea of privilege. So I guess she's kind of woke. Like, she's a bit more left-wing than I thought.
Racism and slavery was a horrific chapter of American history, just as it was in every other part of the world where slavery was inflicted on virtually every race on the planet.
This is saying, in 2016, there was this many slaves in these countries. I don't know what that has to do with history. So it says India has 18 million slaves. That's a lot of slaves. 3.4 million in China, 1 million in Russia, 1.1 in North Korea. So there's a bunch of slaves in the world right now. If we look at America, nothing is listed because it's today. Okay.
Why are we still obsessively talking about this hundreds of years later?
Because it's a generational thing. When a generation is put behind, it puts the other generations behind in their wake. These are macro problems that are operating on such a large scale, we often cannot even see them with our own eyes. What is going on? The lag in wealth in black communities, which has occurred since slavery and since Jim Crow, is something that is ongoing, which has a longer tail than an individual can actually conceptualize. But you can see the patterns the world over throughout history. Indigenous peoples the world over have been put behind, put on the back foot. It always happens. You can always see that. And it's some kind of purposeful ignorance or something on Paul's behalf that he will not recognize or even see that. But instead plays these little games like, I'm really stupid, I'm so dumb, I think it has to be one-to-one, like, you are a slave now, or slavery never impacted anything. Just like people who say, people can't be Nazis because the Nazi party got defeated. It's so obvious that we're not talking about the exact same Nazis. We're talking about people who have been influenced a lot by Nazism and who are very racist and who, if they had their way, would create a kind of authoritarian regime much like the Nazis. Those are the people we're criticizing. We're not saying you literally live in 1943 and you are a jackbooted Nazi who lives many years ago. We're not saying that. It's not literal. Somebody actually said to me once, like, oh, if a black man was walking down the street and then he shot someone, would you say it's fine because of slavery? What? It doesn't excuse what's happening in the present. It just gives context to it. No, that guy has agency and he was doing what he did because that's what he decided. But arguably those conditions may not have existed. It's very hard to tell if black people are not being held back for so many years due to the effects of slavery. It gives you a way of analyzing trends and things that are occurring. But it's not an excuse. It's not just like, oh, you know, anything goes because slavery happened. And the only rebuttal that conservatives have to this is a total straw man.
Could it be because Democrats don't actually care about black lives?
It has been a record year in the city of Chicago, and for all the wrong reasons. The murder rate has never been higher.
This Is America didn't say a single thing against the idea that gun violence in black communities is a problem. I couldn't see anything in there that made a point about that.
And the only thing they actually care about is keeping black people locked in a permanent state of mental victimhood so they can get black votes.
Yeah, well, you know, that's just like your opinion, man.
Glover trying to escape and run from America, which is represented at the end of the video.
I thought Donald Glover was America, so does that mean he's running from himself?
So Donald Glover, Childish Gambino, is essentially playing the role of America. Glover trying to escape and run from America, which is represented at the end of the video.
What is this?
Encapsulates the overarching nihilistic message that America is corrupt, evil, and racist.
I don't think it's saying America is evil. I think it's saying that America can be scary, depending on who you are. It can be frightening. You don't know if you're going to be beaten up. You don't know what's going to happen to you because of your skin color. And not necessarily just from white people. If you live in a violent black community, maybe you're scared in that way too. And it seems like the only way out of that is materialism and status. And that's a fucked up place to be.
So corrupt, evil, and racist that it allows Glover, a black man, to reach the top of his game in both acting and the music industry, while having one of the most celebrated and talked about songs of the year, while appearing on every mainstream talk show on TV, while making tens of millions of dollars in the process.
You're just being jealous. Stop being so fucking jealous. Just because Donald Glover is a lot more successful than you and a lot more talented. My God, he's so much better at basically everything than you are, Paul. You know, he's better at music, he's good at directing, he's definitely smarter, he's better looking. Stop being so fucking jealous. And he's way more successful. Way more successful than you are. Stop being so fucking jealous. That's A. B, he never said America was racist anywhere. You know, that's you putting your interpretation onto it. You can interpret it that way. But I think it's unfair to assume that that is the exact thing that it actually was saying, because it's open to interpretation.
This music video has had over 120 million views in 10 days.
Stop being so fucking jealous.
Videos that emphasize its social justice narrative have tens of millions more views.
I'm jealous.
This is a potent piece of cultural and political propaganda delivered via the medium of pop culture. And me sitting here debunking its delusory, sophistic themes isn't going to reach 120 million people. We need to create our own art. We need to create our own music. We need to create our own cultural narrative.
Yes, but you already have your own culture, you already have your own music, and you already have your own art.
I thank my lucky stars to be living here today, 'cause the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free.
This is America. Don't catch you climbing up. Don't catch you climbing up. 'Cause they'll get you slipping up. Hey, come on. This is America. We'll say North America. Look how we living now. The boys could be tripping now.
'Cause we'll put a boot in your ass. It's the American way. Hey, Uncle Sam, put your name at the top of his list, and the Statue of Liberty started shaking her fist.
They need the votes for the growing state and won't stop who their voters rape. And it's not okay that this is how they rule ya. How they rule ya.
Eminem, you're named after candy. I saw you made a video about my daddy. Are you really that dumb, or did you relapse on the Xanny? Why don't you stick to songs about killing your mom like Bambi?
I love my barbecue, is what Americans do. Pull up a chair, I'll get a beer for you. I love my barbecue, is what Canadians do. Pull up a chair, I'll get a beer for you. Well, the tofu just might kill you.
It go a little something like this. I like my rap vids like I like my coffee, compartmentalized, white in the front, black in the back. Silence you, let the albino privilege speak. Segregation for the nation, white trash god prancing, 40 with the beard of a 14-year-old girl. Took me 3 weeks to throw tween shade on my chin, yo, I'm a shave by sneezing. Hit albums deep in the history, bro, relevance kinda sorta a mystery, yo.
She thinks my tractor's sexy. It really turns her on. She's always staring at me while I'm chugging along.
That's the thing, you know, music and art that is supporting the status quo is generally quite staid and uninteresting. It's quite boring. Unless the only thing you want to do is sit on your ass and go to a fucking baseball, football game or whatever, then it's just pablum. It's just music for the masses. It's just elevator music. It's shit that challenges things is better. Like, that's just how it works, you know? And if your art or music is not going to challenge anything, it's never going to be that cool. Like, there's nothing you can do. How do you make the status quo cool? How do you make that cool? How do you make closing your mind cool? Tool was cool because they talked about the third eye and they talked about opening your mind. But you just want to be like, people should just go back to the established norms. We got to make that cool again. It was barely ever cool in the first place. It was just like put upon people. That's why conservative comedy, conservative music, and so forth is generally so fucking lame. Why do you think you could succeed in this way? It's never gonna happen. But the very status quo that Donald Glover is criticizing in this video is what you support, which is the Call Me Maybes, which is the Justin Timberlakes, which is the boy bands, which is the American Idols, which is the Meghan Trainors, you know, all of the pop music. That's the shit that he is actually criticizing, and you're saying that that's what you're for, to trigger the libtards. It's called Despacito. There you go. That's the music you love.
Young people don't identify with social justice narratives because of their objective truth. They didn't reason themselves into believing Black Lives Matter rhetoric. They believe it because it's socially acceptable and it inflates their inherent narcissism. They identify with it because it's cool to do so. Videos like this make it cool to do so. We need to make this uncool. We need to make social justice the most embarrassing thing in the world.
So you need to make it like Paul Joseph Watson and InfoWars, I understand.
We need to create an environment where artists can express true diversity of opinion without committing career suicide.
True diversity of opinion, like black people are criminals. And nothing else. Except some shit about gay frogs or whatever.
We need to incentivize a return to beauty, a return to authenticity, a reassertion of confidence in Western civilization.
Yes, we shouldn't. We, British people who aren't American, should decide what America is. Look, I'm not from America, I'm from New Zealand. I would never talk in these terms. We have to decide this about America. We have to say what Britain is. We have to tell everyone what Saudi Arabia is. We have to decide what North Korea is in terms of an identity for those countries. Because I'm not from any of them, you know? And I wouldn't even probably presuppose to say what New Zealand should be. I'm from New Zealand, but it's not up to me to decide. But to decide what some other country should do, we have to say Australia is this. I have opinions about Australia, but it's not up to me to decide what we think of Australia. People are going to have different opinions about countries, about things in those countries. You can't be so fragile that you're trying to decide for people what that country is. They will make up their own fucking mind about that. I would never say, you know, because Paul Joseph Watson is from the UK, his narrative is defining the UK and we have to define it a different way. No. Paul Joseph Watson is part of the UK, a particularly shitty part, a very disappointing, dumb, counterproductive part of the UK. The specific individual Paul Joseph Watson part of the UK is the shittest part of the UK, to be honest.
We need to make America cool again.
And I wish you luck with that because you're doing a very poor job of making Britain or the UK or England or whatever you want to call it look cool. Looks kind of shit because of you. I hope you're happy. Anyways, it's a catchy song. It took a while to grow on me, but this is America. I can't do it. Can't fucking do it. Anyways, thanks.
This is America.